The views expressed are solely those of the speaker and not necessarily those of Paltalk.com, AVM Software, or its advertisers.
News Talk is online. News Talk Online is a production of Paltalk.com, the largest multimedia interactive program on the internet, with more than 4 million unique users on demand on iTunes and on YouTube. And on my site, GaryBaumgarten.com, where you are more than welcome to post your comments about my comments. Whether you agree with me or not, it matters not. Thanks to our friends at CRN Digital Talk Radio. Well, we are coast to coast across the United States of America into 12 million additional households. And for expatriated Paltalkers, our new affiliate, Aurora Talk, welcome. I'm your host, Gary Baumgarten. Today, our guest is Jon Soltz, S-O-L-T-Z, of VoteVets.org. Jon is a leader of the Iraq and Afghanistan veterans community. He co-founded VoteVets.org in 2006 to elect veterans of the two conflicts who are critical of the war in Iraq to Congress. VoteVets also maintains a political action committee designed to educate the American public on the war and on military issues. He served as a captain during Operation Iraqi Freedom. He deployed logistics convoys with the 1st Armored Division. He was later mobilized for a year at Fort Dix, New Jersey. I've had occasion to visit Fort Dix on several occasions, where he trained soldiers for combat in Afghanistan and in Iraq. He also served his country with distinction in the Kosovo campaign as a tank platoon leader. He has become one of the most authoritative voices on veterans issues and military issues. He has been interviewed by national outlets such as the Associated Press, Washington Post, New York Times, Los Angeles Times, Time Magazine, Newsweek, and dozens of local outlets. He has appeared on Jim Lehrer's NewsHour on PBS, on CNN, on MSNBC, Fox News, and ABC Nightline, as well as scores of nationally syndicated radio talk shows. And now here's the pinnacle of his talk show circuit career. He's on News Talk Online on Paltalk.com. Jon Soltz, welcome to News Talk Online.
Thanks for having me on.
It's our pleasure, and I want to start by thanking you and the other veterans and the current members of the military for your collective service to this nation. How difficult is it to come back from a war where you are following the orders of your commander-in-chief, serve with distinction, and then become politically active as veterans of that war effort against the policies of the President of the United States, the very policies you had to carry out while on the ground?
Well, it's much harder when you get home than it is when you're there, to be honest. I mean, when you're a soldier, you're doing your job, and there's actually not a lot of politics on the battlefield. I mean, people, they do what their military job is, and I think when you come home and you have a chance to reflect upon it, maybe those pieces of the pie didn't add up or didn't make a puzzle. And so, you know, when you're a kid, you always play, you know, war hero. You never play war sort of debater. And so, I mean, I think it's a little different than maybe how you wanted it to be, but I think that a lot of veterans and vote vets, they do it because, you know, they believe in the truth and the honesty of it. They believe in our national security, and I think it's a challenging time right now when you have President Bush and John McCain leading our country to retreat against Osama bin Laden and Al-Qaeda. And the policy that we've been on for the last 6 or 7 years has been a policy of retreat. And I think the people in the military, they want to take the fight to the enemy. They want to destroy Al-Qaeda and bin Laden, and we just can't do that if we're in Iraq. And, you know, so I think there's an integrity piece that makes people speak up.
Well, as you know, the administration would suggest this is not a war of retreat. The administration would suggest that we are in Iraq fighting al-Qaeda in Iraq, and if we were not on the ground in Iraq, then the al-Qaeda terrorists would be on the ground in the United States, and we would be fighting them here. What do you say to that point of view?
that might make sense for the people they're talking to that have never been to Iraq, but for those of us in Iraq, I promise you that you can ask every troop in our organization, and none of them are going to tell you that they saw Osama bin Laden there. None of them are going to tell you that Al-Qaeda was in Iraq when we invaded the country. So that is as much validity in the eyes of the American public as the Iranian nuclear program that's, according to the NIE, that's been halted. That is as much credibility with the public as the WMD claims. So, the administration's continually trying to sell a war, when in reality, wars should always sell themselves, like the war in Afghanistan did. I mean, we were attacked. And, VoteVets is a pro-military organization, and we believe in national security, and we believe in war as a last resort, not as a choice. And, this administration is trying to sell the war and the surge for domestic political purposes designed by their leaders here at home and not by the troops on the ground in Iraq. And the purpose is to prevent this president from having to admit that he made a catastrophic mistake prior to the end of his term. And they'll face the repercussions in the election in 2008, and we'll be a part of that.
The guest is Jon Soltz. He is the co-founder, I guess, of VoteVets.org. They look for veterans such as himself of the Afghan and Iraq conflicts. They try to get them to run for Congress. And you've been successful in a couple of cases, and I want to talk about that as well in a few minutes. Somebody put in text in this in the virtual auditorium here on Paltalk that her father is a veteran, and her father is opposed to the war, and she considers her father a patriot. I guess that leads to the obvious question: are there those who question the patriotism of people such as yourself, who put your life on the line for this nation and then came out against the war when returning to civilian life?
Well, I sort of hate the whole patriot conversation, because the guys that are in Iraq right now that are fighting, they're patriots also. The people that believe in the war, their belief is that they're doing what's right for their country. And, you'd have to really go the wrong way with me for me to have to call you a patriot. You'd have to, to go the John Walker Lynn route, or to be a spy, or someone who really, really sold your country out. I think that the public debate is American. That's what our country's about. In the military, the job of people in the military is to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States, and to defend people's rights. And no matter if you're for the war or against it, you have a right to speak about it. And obviously there's guidelines in the military. You don't do it in your uniform. You don't do it at political events. You don't do it while you're on active duty. But, for the most part, sure, do people like to play that card? I think people play that card on both sides of the debate. But I think that people that have an opinion, they have it because they care. And that's the most important part. Whether or not we agree with them or not, I mean, just because